So maybe you can give a good recap because you've been attending. You can give a good recap about what happened and kind of the setup for this Jay-Z Buzbee hearing that happened today. And then we can kind of bounce around about what we kind of took away from it.
Yes. So there was an original hearing back in February about this motion to strike from the defense, basically to dismiss the defamation and the extortion claims. There's also an intentional infliction of emotional distress claim too. So the judge had a tentative ruling back then that still isn't final. It wasn't, a lot of judges will issue opinions like ahead of time to kind of give the attorneys a heads up about what they're thinking. And that's what he did here. And he was going to strike the extortion claim. He was saying that he basically said during the argument that California law is such that a lawyer can just lie their ass off in a demand letter as long as they have an intent to sue and a real client. Like there's really not much you can do. It's litigation privilege until it could be grounds for a malicious prosecution case, like after the case is all over. So he was really leaning towards throwing out the extortion claim, and he was going to keep the defamation claim for 3 of the 6 statements. So 3 of the statements would be thrown out. And the idea was that, I mean, it is kind of a win that part of the defamation claim would survive, but really, like, to have a good case to actually go forward, you need the extortion claim. Because I mean, the idea of actually going to like a jury trial on just these 3 statements, I mean, can you guys imagine like Jay-Z going to court for like these 3 tweets? And even if the jury rules that it's defamatory, you know, the idea that the damages would be really big, or the extortion thing is kind of what they really need to like anchor this whole case. But the judge, like I said, was saying, I'm going to throw this out. But Jay-Z's lawyers were saying that, oh, we have this new information, we don't know what it is, but they couldn't talk about it. But the judge delayed the hearing and allowed them to file this stuff. And that's when we started hearing about this interview with Jane Doe that I'm sure a lot of the listeners are familiar with. The claim, the investigators who went to Jane Doe, the accuser who says that Jay-Z and Diddy attacked her at after party for the VMA Awards in 2000. The case was dismissed, but the litigation afterwards has shown that it was basically just, it wasn't dismissed on the merits at all. That the woman is still apparently, according to Tony Buzbee, standing by her claims, but the investigators that were working for somebody connected to Jay-Z went and talked to her in Alabama. And a lot of people have probably heard the recording that was on, I think, Good Morning America, and the transcripts come out where she says that Buzbee is the one that wanted to mention Jay-Z. So that was the new information that came forward and kind of led to all this flurry of filings in the hearing today, which, as you saw, it's another tentative order, right? Nothing
yes,
final.
And the other thing I will quickly add is, just for context or as a reminder, this extortion and this defamation from Jay-Z is against Buzbee. This one is not against Jane Doe. This is specifically Jay-Z saying, Buzbee, you extorted me, you defamed me, and therefore I'm suing you. And so when the judge was saying, I'm throwing this out because he did not extort you, this is, you know, very a male version, right? But when the judge is saying, Jay-Z, I'm throwing this out because he didn't extort you. And then Jay-Z's team says, well, actually, hold on. Let us get some more. Let me show you that he extorted us or extorted. And that's where you enter these recordings. Yes. These are the silver bullet. This is the, hey, judge, don't throw this out because this is our proof that it really was extortion. But like Meg is saying, the key, right, and what the thing was, the judge was really kind of focused in on is, did they really intend to file a lawsuit? And they did, because the lawsuit was filed. And or did Jane Doe actually know, was she actually a real client? And did she know that this settlement letter was sent? Because if so, this wasn't extortion. This is just kind of how this goes. So, yes. Oh, I thought you were going to say something. So that is, I just wanted to give a little more context, because even today I kept having to remember, oh, wait, this is against Buzbee. This is against Buzbee.
Yeah.
Like,
because they've got the separate case, the federal case in Alabama, that's actually against Jane Doe and also against Buzbee. It's malicious prosecution. But yeah, this is the one. And it's interesting to remember that this actually this case was actually filed before the actual amended complaint naming Jay-Z was filed. He originally filed this under a John Doe name. And I remember seeing I think there was a press release about it from Quinn Emanuel or something, but I was just wondering to myself if it was Jay-Z. I mean, to me, the Quinn Emanuel thing was what gave it away. But then a couple weeks later, when they filed the amended complaint, it kind of was like, oh, wait a minute, we've already got the extortion lawsuit going. So this is the continuation of it. And this hearing this morning was supposed to be, I mean, I went in there being like, okay, is he going to finalize this ruling on the extortion thing or not? Like, is he tossing the extortion thing? Yeah. And it seems to me that, that what else was he going to do? Oh, I guess they were asking that was a big ask from the defense, was they wanted to take the deposition of Jane Doe and Tony Buzbee. And he said no to that he's not going to allow that. But it really doesn't matter, because the reason they wanted to take the deposition was to further support their extortion claim. So if he keeps the extortion claim, it doesn't really matter that he's not allowing their depositions yet, because he says that, of course, if this case proceeds to discovery, they're going to get their depositions taken. So the main point, the main win for him is keeping the extortion claim. And I don't know, it kind of seemed like he just wanted to, like, the judge is a real law nerd, but do you see him changing his mind? I mean, did anyone seem to be really persuading him from Buzbee's side that he would change his mind? Like, did you see
I don't think so. I didn't see that. I will also say too, though, and I was trying really hard to get a read, because one of the big moments for me, I wonder if it landed on you the same way, was this back and forth about, well, who hired the investigators? Who hired these investigators to go to Jane Doe's house in Alabama, show up on her porch and ask her these questions? And of course, I think the media narrative and what's been put out is that it was not Jay-Z, it was not his people, he didn't do it. And then they're having this back and forth, and the judge says, we'll let you just settle this right now. And he kind of turns to Jay's attorneys and he just asks, who hired the investigators?
Yeah, because it would be, and just from, like, when they first raised this, Buzbee's lawyers, I was like, yeah, I recognize that from covering like other cases, that if somebody is represented by a client, it is considered, or if somebody's represented by a lawyer, it's unethical for another lawyer to contact that person directly and not go through their lawyer. So Buzbee's lawyers seem to like really pounce on that. They're like, this is deeply concerning that they contacted a represented party. But the easy out, and that was their easy out from the beginning. The lawyers were just like, we didn't hire these investigators, they're not connected to us. And the judge seemed to like pretty well dispel that today. You even said, although I don't know why, it's like, this would not be appropriate, like, publicly. And he seemed to acknowledge that, like, Jay-Z has an ethical right. Well, Jay-Z's not a licensed lawyer, so he can't get in trouble with a state bar, and he doesn't have ethical duties as a lawyer to not contact someone who's represented by a party. So the idea that he would go and contact this woman is crazy. But the judge's point is that he has a legal right, or an ethical, he's not bound by the ethical duties of attorneys not to contact other, and same with any investigator. So I remembered Robert Schwartz, the Jay-Z's lawyer, point blank said, we didn't hire him, but it was pretty, he did say Rock Nation hired him.
Yeah. I think I wrote in my Patreon exactly what was said, because I was like, oh, tell us more. Hold on. He said, let me find it. Oh, where is it? Okay. He said, I would like to know who hired the investigators. And the attorney said, as far as I know, someone at Mr. Carter's company. And then the judge said, Mr. Carter's company. The attorney said, at Rock Nation. I think they were hired by an investigator at Rock Nation. That's what he said at first. And then we are in there. More things happen. And then the Jay's attorneys circle back and say that they got a call, or somebody informed them that it actually wasn't someone. It was someone who worked for Jay, like an assistant, and they knew an investigator. And so that's how these investigators came on board. It became a little like, what happened? Yeah. But the judge said it's okay to infer. I am inferring that even by this third party in this kind of roundabout way, you're still saying this person was hired by Jay-Z, essentially, is what it comes down to. And it's reasonable to assume that even if this third party person hired the investigators, Jay-Z knew about it. He knew that these investigators were going to go to her house. So that was kind of the big takeaway.
Yeah. It seemed to me, just kind of going back, that the attorneys were just kind of, defense was just kind of surprised that the judge was going to accept these statements at all, and thought that like the premise of these investigators like kind of going to her house when she's not represented by counsel would just eliminate everything. So it didn't seem like they really had much of an argument.
I agree.
Like other than that. And the judge was just kind of, I mean, you can tell the judge is, I mean, his dad was this appellate justice. So of course he's just this law nerd, and he loves to talk about law, and it goes on. We're all going to be back there on April 7th now, I guess. But like we were saying, is the opinion really going to change very much, or is the order going to change very much?
I'm still reading through it though. So I'm still reading, but go ahead.
I like the part about not for the press, or this is for the press. I saw it and I was like, oh, I better read this part. Then he's like, no, this is for actually you guys. It's about how obviously some of those filings were meant for the press, but the stuff about Jane Doe's background and just the relevancy of it and the legality of it when he's deciding the law, because it really just comes down to, is there a chance? And frankly, some of his reasoning and the stuff about the timing of the statements and what could have happened, I got a little lost in. But it seemed like the overall legal issue he's thinking about is there a chance that Tony Buzbee sent this demand letter without the permission of Jane Doe? And he's concluded that there is, that these statements show that there is. And that doesn't mean that it's been proven that there is, or it definitely means that Jay-Z is going to win if this actually goes forward. It just means that it favors him right now, if you assume all facts in his favor.